His wife planned her exit for 2 years. She never knew he owned 47% of the company. The first time Claire Whitmore realized her husband had replaced her, she was standing 12 feet away from him beneath a chandelier worth more than the house where she had grown up. Daniel was laughing. Not the polite laugh he used with investors. Not the restrained smile he gave reporters. This one was softer, private. The kind Claire remembered from the first years of their marriage, when they had eaten Chinese takeout on the floor because they couldn't afford a dining table. Except Daniel wasn't looking at her. His hand rested lightly against another woman's back. Vanessa Cole, 32, beautiful, ambitious, and, according to the company directory, vice president of strategic development at Halcyon Industries. According to the whispers Claire had been hearing for 6 months, something else entirely. Claire stood near the champagne tower and watched Vanessa lean toward her husband. Daniel whispered something. Vanessa laughed. Then she touched his sleeve. A tiny gesture. Almost nothing. But marriages rarely die from one dramatic wound. Sometimes they die from 1,000 small cuts no one else can see. Mrs. Whitmore? Claire turned. A waiter offered champagne. No, thank you. Her voice was calm. It had become very good at being calm. Across the ballroom, Daniel finally noticed her. For half a second, something changed in his face. Then Vanessa followed his gaze. Her smile sharpened. She crossed the room before Daniel could. Claire. Vanessa's voice carried just enough to attract attention. What a surprise. Claire looked at her. Is it? Vanessa glanced at Claire's simple black dress. You usually avoid company events. I've been busy. Of course. That smile again. I suppose not everyone enjoys being around people who are moving forward. Two executives nearby suddenly became fascinated by their drinks. Claire understood. This wasn't conversation. It was theater, and she had been invited to play the humiliated wife. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country below. And if you believe dignity is the strongest revenge, hit like and subscribe. Now, back to Claire's story. Vanessa lifted her champagne glass. Daniel mentioned you're still doing consulting. Did he? A little freelance work, wasn't it? Claire looked across the ballroom. Daniel had gone still. Something like that. Vanessa laughed. That must be nice. Flexible hours. No real pressure. Claire smiled. Very little. That wasn't true. For the past 2 years, Claire had been working 18-hour days. She had also been planning her exit. Not from a job. From her marriage. She had learned something important about leaving a powerful man. You didn't announce it. You prepared. Quietly. For 23 months, Claire had copied tax records, cataloged assets, opened an account in her own name, rebuilt professional relationships Daniel had encouraged her to abandon, and documented every financial decision she had been excluded from. She had spoken to one attorney, then another. She had rented a small apartment under her maiden name. There was already a toothbrush in the bathroom, 3 dresses in the closet, coffee in the kitchen, and on the nightstand, beside an unopened novel, rested a silver key. Freedom sometimes looked surprisingly ordinary. She planned to leave Daniel in 11 days. He had no idea. At least, that was what Claire believed. Daniel finally approached. Vanessa. One word. Vanessa heard the warning. She smiled at him. We were just talking. I can see that. Daniel looked at Claire. You came. You invited me. I wasn't sure you would. For 8 years, Claire had known every version of his face. She knew when he was angry, when he was calculating, when he was lying. Tonight, she couldn't read him at all. Would you like a drink? He asked. No. Claire. Vanessa touched his arm. Daniel. Mitchell wants to introduce you to the Zurich group. Claire watched his eyes drop briefly to Vanessa's hand. He removed his arm. Too late. Claire had already seen enough. Go, she said. Claire. Your investors are waiting. The words were gentle. That made them worse. Daniel stared at her for another moment, then walked away. Vanessa followed. Claire remained beneath the chandelier. No tears. No accusation. No scene. Just a woman standing alone while the man she had once built her entire life around disappeared into a crowd without looking back. People noticed. Of course they noticed. Rich people had perfected the art of pretending not to watch other people's pain. Claire picked up her coat 20 minutes later. She didn't know Daniel watched her leave. She didn't see him step away from Vanessa. Didn't see him cross to the windows. Didn't see his reflection staring into the glass as Claire's taxi disappeared into the rain. And she certainly didn't hear him whisper, 11 days. Because Daniel Whitmore knew. He had known for 3 months. He knew about the apartment, the attorney, the private account, the suitcase hidden in the storage unit. He knew his wife was leaving him. What Claire didn't know was that Daniel had been hiding something too. Something worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Something that could destroy the company she was secretly preparing to take control of. Something printed in black ink on a confidential ownership agreement. Daniel Whitmore owned 47% of Halcyon Industries. And almost no one knew. Not even his wife. 8 years earlier, there had been no Halcyon. There had been Daniel and Claire. A one-bedroom apartment. A broken heater. 2 laptops. And a dining table they found beside a dumpster and carried home together in the rain. Daniel had ideas. Claire knew how to make them survive contact with reality. He could walk into a room and make people believe the impossible. She could spend 6 hours inside a spreadsheet and tell him exactly why the impossible would bankrupt them. They had been good together. Dangerously good. When Daniel's first company collapsed, Claire sold the diamond earrings her mother had left her. Daniel found out only after the rent had been paid. You sold them. He stood in their kitchen holding the receipt. We needed 3 months. Those were your mother's. Claire kept chopping onions. My mother is dead. We are not. Daniel had stared at her for a long time. Then he walked around the counter and wrapped his arms around her. I'll buy them back. No. I will. Then buy me something ugly. He laughed. Into her hair. I love you. She closed her eyes. I know. Those were the years Claire remembered when she couldn't understand what they had become. Success arrived slowly. Then all at once, Daniel joined Halcyon as a restructuring consultant. Within 4 years, the company tripled in value. The press called him brilliant. Investors called him ruthless. Employees called him Mr. Whitmore, even at Christmas parties. Claire called him Daniel. Until eventually she barely called him anything. There were late meetings. Closed doors. Trips she wasn't invited on. Dinners postponed. Anniversaries rescheduled. Then Vanessa appeared. Daniel never admitted an affair. Claire never asked. By then, she had discovered something more painful than infidelity. She had become invisible inside her own marriage. So she stopped asking to be seen. She started building a door. The opportunity came through Evelyn Hart. 71 years old. Silver hair. Old money. Older instincts. Evelyn had founded Hartwell Capital decades earlier and had a reputation for buying companies everyone else thought were already dead. She met Claire at a charity board meeting. Claire corrected a financial projection Evelyn's analyst had prepared. Not publicly. She simply slid a note across the table. Evelyn read it. Looked at Claire. Then read it again. After the meeting, she asked, "Who taught you to read balance sheets?" Fear. Evelyn smiled. I like you. That conversation became coffee. Coffee became consulting. Consulting became something larger. For the first time in years, someone asked Claire what she thought and waited for the answer. Evelyn didn't flatter her. She challenged her. When Claire's projections were weak, Evelyn tore them apart. When they were strong, she used them. You keep apologizing before you speak, Evelyn told her one morning. Claire looked up. I don't. You just did it with your face. Claire almost laughed. Evelyn leaned back. Someone trained you to make yourself smaller. The words landed quietly. Claire stared at her coffee. Evelyn didn't ask who. She didn't need to. 6 months later, Hartwell Capital began exploring the acquisition of a controlling position in Halcyon. Claire nearly walked away. Instead, she studied the company. Every public filing, every disclosed shareholder, every subsidiary, every debt instrument. She knew Daniel worked there. What she didn't know was how deeply his roots ran. Public records showed his direct holdings at less than 5%. The rest appeared fragmented among investment vehicles, trusts, and legacy shareholders. Evelyn wanted control. Claire built the strategy. It took 14 months. By the end, Hartwell had commitments that could deliver 51% of voting rights once the final agreements were signed. Claire would become interim chief operating officer after the acquisition, possibly CEO later. She told herself it wasn't revenge. Most days, she believed it. 11 days after the gala, Claire woke at 5:12 a.m. Daniel was already awake. He stood in the kitchen making coffee. 2 cups. He hadn't made hers in months. Claire stopped in the doorway. Couldn't sleep? No. He pushed a cup toward her. Exactly the way she drank it. No sugar. A little milk. She didn't touch it. Daniel looked tired. Not executive tired. Human tired. When were you going to tell me? Claire's fingers tightened around the back of a chair. Tell you what. He looked toward the hallway. The apartment on Mercer Street. Silence. No dramatic music. No shattered glass. Only the refrigerator humming behind them. Claire slowly pulled out the chair. How long have you known? 3 months. She sat. And you said nothing. I was waiting for you to. A strange laugh escaped her. That's rich. I know. No, Daniel. I don't think you do. He looked at her. Claire had rehearsed this moment in hotel rooms, taxis, showers, elevators. In every version, she was composed. Now her hands were trembling. I spent years waiting for you to come home, she said. Then I spent another year realizing you were home and somehow still gone. Daniel lowered his eyes. Claire, no. He stopped. I don't want an explanation about work. I don't want to hear that Vanessa is complicated. I don't want to hear how much pressure you've been under. His jaw tightened at Vanessa's name. Claire noticed. Is that what you think? I think it stopped matching. That hurt him. She saw it. For one dangerous second, the old Claire wanted to soften the blow. She didn't. I filed the preliminary divorce documents. Daniel's face became very still. When? Yesterday. He nodded once. Okay. Claire had expected anger. Questions. Maybe resistance. Not that. Okay. She stood. I'll be staying at the apartment starting tonight. Daniel looked at the untouched coffee. Okay. She walked toward the hallway. Claire. She stopped. I never slept with Vanessa. Claire closed her eyes. There it was. The sentence she had once needed desperately. Now it felt almost useless. She turned. That doesn't make me less lonely. Daniel had no answer. That evening, Claire slept in the Mercer Street apartment for the first time. The mattress was too firm. The pipes clicked. Someone upstairs dropped something at 1:17 a.m. Claire lay in darkness and cried so quietly she barely heard herself. Not because she wanted Daniel back. Because 8 years had ended in a kitchen over untouched coffee. Grief did not care whether leaving was the right decision. It came anyway. Morning arrived pale and cold. Claire showered, put on a navy suit, tied her hair back, and went to work. 3 days later, Evelyn called. We have a problem. Claire entered Hartwell's conference room. Documents covered the table. Evelyn stood by the window. What happened? Our final block didn't close. Claire froze. Rothman backed out. Why? He received another offer. From whom? Evelyn turned. We don't know. Claire picked up the ownership chart. Without Rothman's 6%, Hartwell had 45. Not control. Can we replace it? Possibly. How long? Weeks. We don't have weeks. Halcyon's annual shareholder meeting was Friday. Their strategy depended on revealing the acquisition before the board voted on a controversial asset sale Vanessa had been championing. Claire had spent months analyzing that deal. It was terrible, overpriced, over-leveraged, and structured in a way that would enrich 3 executives while exposing thousands of employees to layoffs if projections failed. Vanessa was one of those executives. Claire looked at Evelyn. We go Friday. With 45%. We go with the evidence. Evidence doesn't control a board. No. Claire closed the folder. But sometimes shame does. Friday morning arrived beneath a sky the color of steel. Claire dressed slowly. Ivory blouse. Black trousers. Her mother's watch. No diamonds. No armor anyone could see. At 8:40, she entered Halcyon's headquarters beside Evelyn Hart. The lobby changed. Not visibly, but Claire felt it. Heads turned. Conversations shortened. A receptionist stood. Mrs. Whitmore? Claire smiled. Claire Hartley. Her maiden name. The receptionist blinked, then nodded. Upstairs, Daniel was in the boardroom. Vanessa stood beside the presentation screen. When the doors opened and Claire entered with Evelyn and 3 Hartwell attorneys, Vanessa's expression was almost worth 2 years of preparation. Almost. Daniel simply looked at Claire. He didn't seem surprised. That bothered her. Mrs. Whitmore, Vanessa said. Ms. Hartley, Claire corrected. Several directors exchanged glances. Evelyn took her seat. Vanessa recovered quickly. I wasn't aware Hartwell had been invited. We're shareholders, Evelyn said. Minority shareholders. For the moment. Silence. Vanessa's smile faded. Daniel remained at the far end of the table. Claire refused to look at him again. The meeting began. Numbers appeared on screens. Vanessa presented the acquisition. Projected growth. Market expansion. Synergies. Beautiful words designed to make dangerous debt sound sophisticated. Then Claire raised her hand. Vanessa paused. Yes. Slide 37. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. What about it? The projected logistics savings assume a 12% reduction in distribution costs. Correct. Based on what? Our operational analysis. Which analysis? Vanessa glanced toward the CFO. Claire opened a folder. Because the report submitted to the board uses an internal benchmark from 2021. Fuel costs, labor contracts, and warehouse leases have all changed since then. No one moved. Claire continued. The actual reduction isn't 12%. She slid copies down the table. It's 2.8. A director began reading. Another followed. Vanessa's face hardened. Those figures are incomplete. They're audited. By whom? Hartwell. Evelyn said nothing. She didn't need to. Claire changed the slide. And there's another problem. A corporate structure appeared. Free shell companies. Consulting contracts. Executive incentive payments. Vanessa went pale. Claire looked at her. If this acquisition closes under the proposed terms, approximately $84 million moves through advisory and performance structures connected to senior management. The chairman leaned forward. Connected how? Claire placed one final document on the table. Beneficial ownership. Vanessa stopped breathing. Daniel watched her. Not Claire. Vanessa. That was when Claire understood. He knew. He had known about this too. The chairman removed his glasses. Miss Cole. Vanessa's voice sharpened. This is absurd. Is it? She turned toward Daniel. Say something. He didn't. Daniel. His eyes finally moved to Claire. What do you want me to say? Vanessa stared at him. Tell them she's doing this because of us. Claire almost smiled. There it was. The humiliation Vanessa had intended for her months earlier, now thrown desperately across a boardroom. Claire answered before Daniel could. This isn't about my marriage. She looked around the table. If my husband embarrassed me, that's personal. If executives mislead shareholders, that's business. Silence. Cold. Complete. Vanessa looked suddenly smaller. Then Evelyn stood. Hartwell Capital currently controls 45% of voting commitments. We intended to announce a majority position today. One shareholder withdrew. A flicker of triumph returned to Vanessa's face. So you don't have control? No, Evelyn said. We don't. Vanessa exhaled. The chairman leaned back. Then unless another motion is presented, we proceed with the scheduled vote. Claire felt 14 months of work collapsing. She had known this was possible. She had prepared herself. Still, failure had weight. It settled behind her ribs. Vanessa straightened her jacket. Then perhaps we should stop wasting everyone's time. Daniel moved. Just one hand. He placed a black folder on the table. The sound was soft, but every person in the room heard it. The chairman frowned. What is that? Daniel opened the folder. Disclosure. Claire stared at him. He slid the first document forward. The chairman read, then stopped. His face changed. He looked at Daniel, then at the document again. This can't be right. It is. Evelyn stepped closer. What percentage? The chairman answered. 47. Claire felt the room tilt. Vanessa laughed nervously. 47 what? No one answered her. Claire looked at Daniel. For the first time in years, she couldn't breathe. Daniel met her eyes. I own 47% of Halcyon. The words were almost quiet. Claire shook her head. No. Through Whitmore Strategic Holdings, 2 family trusts, and the founder's conversion agreement. Evelyn took the document. Her eyes moved quickly. Then she looked at Claire. It was real. 47%. Daniel. Her husband. The man she had lived beside for 8 years. The man whose shirts she had folded. Whose coffee she knew. Whose breathing she could recognize in darkness. Owned nearly half the company she had spent 2 years trying to take over. And he had never told her. Claire's voice was barely audible. Why? Daniel looked at the board. Because when Halcyon was failing, I negotiated equity instead of cash. Over 7 years, I consolidated positions privately. Why didn't you tell me? This time the question wasn't corporate. Everyone knew it. Daniel's face changed. Because I thought if I lost it, you wouldn't have to lose it with me. Claire stared at him. He continued. And then it became valuable. Very valuable. Yes. And you still didn't tell me. No. Why? His answer took too long. Because by then I'd forgotten how to tell you anything. The room became painfully quiet. Claire looked away. That sentence hurt more than any confession about Vanessa could have. Vanessa stepped forward. Fine. Daniel controls 47. Hartwell controls 45. That still doesn't give either of you a majority. Daniel closed the folder. You're right. Vanessa smiled. Then Daniel turned to the chairman. I'm voting my shares against the acquisition. Her smile disappeared. What? And I'm calling for Ms. Cole's immediate suspension pending an independent investigation. Vanessa's face drained. Daniel, he continued, I also assign voting proxy over my 47% for the next 90 days. The chairman frowned. To whom? Daniel looked at Claire. She went completely still. Claire Hartley. No one spoke. Not Evelyn. Not the directors. Not Vanessa. Claire stared at him. What are you doing? Something I should have done years ago. Don't. His face tightened. This isn't an apology. Then what is it? Trust. Claire almost laughed. You don't repair 8 years of silence with 47% of a company. I know. Do you? Yes. For once, Daniel didn't move toward her. Didn't ask forgiveness. Didn't explain. He simply signed the proxy. Then pushed the pen away. The chairman cleared his throat. With Hartwell's 45% and Mr. Whitmore's proxy, 92%, Evelyn said. Claire looked at the papers in front of her. 92%. Enough to stop the deal. Enough to remove Vanessa. Enough to replace the board if necessary. Enough power to destroy everyone who had laughed at her. She could feel their fear now. People who had barely acknowledged her at company dinners were watching her like she had become gravity. Vanessa stepped closer. Claire. There was something almost pleading in her voice now. Claire looked up. Vanessa swallowed. You don't understand how this industry works. Claire remembered the gala. No real pressure. Not everyone enjoys being around people who are moving forward. She could have repeated every word. Could have humiliated her slowly. Could have enjoyed it. Instead, Claire closed the folder. I understand enough. Vanessa's eyes hardened. You hate me. Claire considered that. Then shook her head. No. Somehow that was worse. Vanessa looked confused. Claire stood. I spent too much of my life giving other people the power to determine how I felt about myself. I'm not giving you what's left. She turned to the chairman. Proceed with the suspension and independent investigation. Preserve all records. No public accusations until council completes its review. Evelyn's mouth curved slightly. There she was. Not Daniel's wife. Not Vanessa's rival. Claire. The vote took 6 minutes. The acquisition was rejected. Vanessa was suspended unanimously. 3 directors resigned before lunch. By 2 p.m., reporters were waiting outside. Claire avoided them. She found Daniel alone in his office. He had removed his tie. The city stretched behind him through floor-to-ceiling glass. For years, Claire had imagined confronting him here. In some versions, she screamed. In others, she handed him divorce papers and watched him break. Reality was quieter. You knew about Hartwell, she said. Daniel nodded. How long? 7 months. Her eyes widened. You let me keep going. Yes. You watched me build a takeover against your company. Yes. Why didn't you stop me? Daniel looked out at the city. Because you were good. Claire said nothing. Better than good, he continued. Your restructuring plan solved problems our board had ignored for years. That doesn't answer me. He turned. Because every time I considered stopping you, I realized I'd be doing it for the same reason I hid the shares. Control. He nodded. Claire crossed her arms. And Vanessa? She wanted the acquisition approved. She thought I supported it. Did she think you loved her? Daniel's face tightened. No. Did you let her think that? A pause. Sometimes. There it was. Not adultery. Something uglier in a different way. Cowardice. Claire looked at the floor. You used her attention. Yes. To feel important. Yes. And you let me think. I know. Her eyes lifted sharply. No. Don't say you know. You don't get to summarize my pain because you've finally decided to be honest. Daniel went silent. Claire's voice trembled now. I spent nights wondering what she had that I didn't. He closed his eyes. I changed my hair. His face broke slightly. I bought dresses you never noticed. Claire, I stood in mirrors and tried to identify what part of me had become insufficient. He looked at her. She saw tears in his eyes. She had never seen Daniel cry. Not when his father died. Not when his first company collapsed. Not even on their wedding day. Now one tear moved down his cheek. Claire didn't rescue him from it. You should have told me, she whispered. Yes. You should have trusted me. Yes. You should have come home. Daniel swallowed. Yes. Outside, traffic moved 40 floors below. Claire removed her wedding ring. Daniel stared at it. She placed it on his desk. He didn't touch it. Is this final? She looked at the man she had loved when they had nothing. Maybe part of her still loved him. That was the cruel thing about endings. Love didn't always leave when you did. The divorce is. Daniel nodded. He looked down at the ring. Okay. Claire walked toward the door. Claire. She stopped. If I had told you about the shares, would you have stayed? She thought about it. No. Daniel closed his eyes. Strangely, he looked relieved. Good. She frowned. Why? Because then I'd spend the rest of my life wondering whether money could have fixed what I broke. Claire looked at him for a long moment, then left. 6 months later, Halcyon looked different. So did Claire. She became chief operating officer after Hartwell and Daniel negotiated a formal governance agreement. The headlines called it a corporate coup. They were wrong. Coups were violent. Claire's rise happened through spreadsheets, votes, early mornings, and rooms where she learned not to apologize before speaking. Vanessa resigned after the investigation confirmed undisclosed conflicts of interest. No criminal charges followed. Claire didn't celebrate. She had discovered victory rarely felt like fireworks. Mostly it felt like finally being able to sleep. Daniel stepped down from executive operations. He retained his shares but surrendered day-to-day authority. For the first time since Claire had known him, he stopped chasing the next room. He started therapy, sold the penthouse, moved into an apartment smaller than the one they had shared as newlyweds. Claire heard these things from other people. She never asked. Her own apartment changed too. Plants appeared, then paintings, then a ridiculous yellow chair Evelyn hated. You have terrible taste, Evelyn said. Claire smiled. I know. Keep it. One rainy Thursday, nearly a year after the divorce became final, Claire stayed late at Halcyon. The building was quiet. She was reviewing quarterly reports when someone knocked. Daniel stood in the doorway. He looked different. Not poorer. Not defeated. Just lighter. I can come back another time. Claire closed the report. What do you need? Shareholder documents. Legal has them. I know. She raised an eyebrow. Daniel smiled faintly. I also wanted to see you. Claire leaned back. That's a dangerous reason to visit your COO. I've made worse decisions. Several. Documented extensively. She almost smiled. Almost. Daniel stepped inside but didn't sit. I heard Zurich approve the expansion. This morning. Congratulations. Thank you. Silence settled between them. It wasn't painful anymore. That surprised her. Daniel looked toward the window. Do you remember that table? Claire frowned. What table? The one we carried 6 blocks in the rain. She laughed before she could stop herself. The leg fell off. You said it gave the apartment character. I lied. I know. They both smiled. Then the smile faded. Daniel put his hands in his pockets. I've wanted to say something for months. Claire waited. I'm sorry. She looked at him. No speech followed. No justification. No request. Just those 2 words. I'm sorry I made you lonely while standing right beside you. Claire felt something loosen inside her. Not love returning. Not forgiveness arriving fully formed. Something simpler. Recognition. Thank you, she said. Daniel nodded. He turned to leave. Daniel. He stopped. Why 47? He looked back. What? You could have pushed for 51. A small smile appeared. The founder wouldn't sell more. Claire shook her head. So the great Daniel Whitmore actually failed at a negotiation. Apparently. I wish I'd known that years ago. So do I. He reached the door. Claire looked at the city. Coffee sometime. Daniel froze. She almost laughed at his expression. Coffee, she repeated. That's all. He nodded carefully. I'd like that. No expectations. None. No secrets. His expression softened. No secrets. He left. Claire remained by the window. Below her, headlights moved through the rain. Once, she had believed leaving Daniel would be the moment she won. Then she believed taking control of Halcyon would be the moment. Then Vanessa's downfall. Then the divorce decree. She had been wrong every time. Winning had happened somewhere much quieter. Maybe on the first night in the Mercer Street apartment when she cried herself to sleep but didn't go home. Maybe the first time she corrected a director without apologizing. Maybe when 92% of a company suddenly rested beneath her hand and she chose governance instead of revenge. Or maybe it was now, standing alone in an office she had earned, looking at a city that no longer frightened her. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Tuesday, 8 a.m. The old coffee place. Claire looked at it. She didn't answer immediately. A year ago, she would have analyzed every word. Now she simply smiled. Then typed, 8:30. I sleep better these days. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, 8:30 it is. Claire placed the phone face down. Outside, the rain had stopped. The glass reflected a woman in an ivory blouse with her mother's watch around her wrist. No wedding ring. No armor. No need to prove anything. She had spent 2 years planning how to leave her husband. She had thought freedom required knowing every secret, securing every document, predicting every move. Yet the largest secret of all had been sitting across the breakfast table from her. 47%. Enough money to change generations. Enough power to decide the future of thousands of employees. Daniel had hidden it. Then, when the moment came, he had placed that power in her hands. But that wasn't what saved Claire. Money hadn't saved her. Daniel hadn't saved her. Evelyn hadn't saved her. Not even leaving had saved her. She had saved herself slowly. One bank account. One apartment key. One difficult morning. One decision at a time. And perhaps that was why she could finally look at Daniel without needing him to suffer. Revenge would have required her to remain emotionally tied to his punishment. Freedom asked something harder. It asked her to stop measuring her future against his regret. Months later, at Halcyon's annual gala, Claire entered the same ballroom where Vanessa had once mocked her. The chandelier still burned overhead. The champagne still glittered. The same people still watched one another while pretending not to. But this time, conversation stopped for a different reason. Ms. Hartley, Claire, congratulations on the quarter. She accepted their greetings without shrinking from them. Evelyn appeared beside her holding champagne. Everyone is terrified of you. Claire glanced around. I hope not. I do. Claire laughed. Then the ballroom doors opened. Daniel entered. Alone. No Vanessa. No entourage. No performance. His eyes found Claire across the room. For a second, neither moved. Then he lifted his glass. A tiny gesture. Respect from a distance. Claire lifted hers. That was all. Evelyn watched them. Are you taking him back? Claire nearly choked on her champagne. Evelyn. I'm 72. I don't have time for subtlety. Claire looked at Daniel again. He was speaking to an employee now, listening rather than scanning the room for someone more important. I don't know. Evelyn studied her. Good. Good. Women waste too much time believing every feeling needs an immediate decision. Claire smiled. Who taught you that? 3 husbands. 3. 2 were mistakes. 1 was research. Claire laughed. Across the room, Daniel heard it. He turned and smiled. Not because he owned 47%. Not because Claire controlled the company. Not because anyone had won. For once, neither of them was trying to possess the ending. Claire turned back toward the windows. The city burned gold below. She thought of the woman who had stood beneath that chandelier 1 year earlier while another woman touched her husband's arm. That Claire had believed humiliation meant everyone could see she wasn't enough. Now she understood. The humiliating thing had never been being abandoned. It had been abandoning herself to remain acceptable to someone else. She would never do that again. Daniel approached eventually. Not too close. Enjoying the party? More than last year. He winced. Fair. Claire looked at him. How's the apartment? Small. You used to like small apartments. I liked one. Their eyes met. The memory passed between them gently. No wound this time. Just history. Daniel glanced at the crowd. You know, everyone thinks I gave you control because I wanted you back. Did you? No. Claire waited. I gave it to you because you were the best person in that room to have it. She studied him. A year ago, those words would have meant everything. Tonight, they were simply nice to hear. That difference mattered. Thank you. Daniel nodded. And for the record, what? You were always better at the numbers. Claire smiled. I know. He laughed. There it was. That old laugh. The one from the apartment floor. The one she thought Vanessa had stolen. Claire finally understood nobody had stolen it. People weren't possessions. Neither were memories. Neither was love. Sometimes love survived only by changing shape. Sometimes redemption wasn't getting the marriage back. Sometimes it was becoming the kind of man who could finally accept why it had ended. Daniel extended his hand. Dance. Claire looked at it. Then at him. Around them, hundreds of people were watching. Waiting. The old Claire might have wondered what accepting meant. What refusing meant. What everyone would say tomorrow. Claire Hartley didn't care. She placed her hand in his. One dance. One. They stepped onto the floor. No dramatic reunion. No kiss. No promise. Just 2 people who had once loved each other badly learning, perhaps, to respect each other well. When the song ended, Daniel released her first. Good night, Claire. Good night, Daniel. He walked away. She didn't watch him leave. Instead, Claire crossed toward the windows where dawn-colored city lights shimmered against the glass. Her reflection followed her. Calm, whole, free. She had planned her exit for 2 years. She had prepared for lawyers, betrayal, financial warfare, and a husband who might use every resource he possessed to stop her. She had prepared for everything except the truth. He owned 47% of the company. He could have used it against her. Instead, he gave her the vote. But his redemption was not her victory. His regret was not her reward. His money was not her freedom. Her freedom had begun long before that boardroom. It began the moment she stopped asking whether she was worthy of being chosen, and chose herself. The chandelier glittered behind her. Music rose again. Someone called her name from across the ballroom. Claire turned toward the sound, toward her company, toward her future, and she walked forward without looking back. Because in the end, she didn't win her husband back. She didn't need to. She won herself.